Welcome to the Forward Podcast. I trust that you're having a wonderful week. We're ready to dive into it once again this evening. And tonight we are gathered around, and actually we have quite a few questions over the last really month and a half, I guess, Kara, that's come in that you've compiled. And we really thought some of these we could really include in other episodes. But then there are some questions that you just can't. And so really want to try to kind of nail down a couple of these this evening, kind of go through. And some of these Kara, I'm going to squeeze around here, compiled together and just add them together to try to hit and talk about several of these tonight.
Yeah, they're kind of miscellaneous questions.
They are all over the place.
Yeah, I don't feel like they're long enough to make a whole episode on, but we don't want to leave them hanging either. We don't want to leave you guys out, hang you out to dry. We definitely want to answer your questions as best we can. So they're kind of miscellaneous, but that's okay.
Yeah, and I'd like to say this. I do love that people get involved.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Always ask questions.
Yeah, I really do. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. It's awesome that people tune in every week. It's amazing the feedback that I feel like here more and more we're getting great feedback. Mm-hmm. People you did not know that we're tuning in every week, and they are, mm-hmm. and people are learning and growing, and then just to have the nerve to write into a show and, hey, here's some things we'd really like to know.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. Shows that people want to learn. They want to grow.
Are a couple questions that we won't fit in this episode because they're probably long enough to be their own episode.
Sure.
So if you wrote one in and you're like, you haven't answered that, and it's been a while, we're working on it. We got kind of a couple pretty deep and serious ones, okay. And we don't want to just fly off the handle and give you just, our, what is that called? Like a quick reaction.
Yeah, I don't know.
Shoot from the hip reaction.
Yeah. Chain reaction. I don't know. Don't laugh at me. Listen, I don't know what you were going.
Oh, wow.
Well, what is it now?
It's like a shoot from the hip reaction.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
Like it's quick, like shoot from the hip.
Yes. Chain reaction. My chain reaction is shoot from the hip.
Oh my gosh, that was funny.
Okay, sorry.
Oh man,
it's a late night tonight. Maybe we should not answer these questions on this.
Is right. We are kind of late tonight. It's my fault.
Okay, so let's go with this first one. Chain reaction here. Let's go with this first one. Why don't you ask me? Because there's no way you're going to answer this first one.
I could if I really tried. Okay. I could do it.
Then I'll ask you, Carrie, how do you create a good budget for the family?
Ask your husband.
Ding, ding, ding. Good. Okay.
I'm not the budgeter of
Next
the family.
question.
I am the spender, and that's my calling in life. I'm not ashamed of that.
Yeah.
Okay. You could have married anyone else.
Listen, never mind. That's a whole nother story. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Heartland for a minute, but I don't think our listeners are interested in that at all. So, how to create a good budget, especially for your family. A good budget, seriously, in all seriousness, always starts with great stewardship. You've got to be good at stewarding. I always start with, especially young people, they're heading into marriage. We live in this world, very much a culture, Carrie, where it's, I want it and I want it right now. Mm-hmm. And we live in a culture where you can get it right now. Mm-hmm. You want a car? We just bought Carrie a couple of weeks ago a new car. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing we did from an app. Mm-hmm. We bought Carrie's Tesla all the way through from an app. Like it's the world that we live in.
Yeah.
And so what do you want? Oh yeah, we'll give it to you right now. And whether you can afford it or not, we live in a world where we look around, we want our parents' house, we want their furniture. We want to be where it used to take most couples 20, 25, 30 years to get settled.
Right.
A young couple within 6 months can have it all. And so the problem with that is most can't afford it. And so be a good steward. I always tell people, make sure you're tithing. I know that's so cliche and like, oh, well, you're a pastor and you have a Christian podcast, but I'm telling you, God blesses a giver. Mm-hmm. Number 2, live within your means. if you're going to set a budget that works. If you can't afford uh, a gigabyte of internet, then don't get it. Go down to 200 megabytes. Like, I just want the fastest. Well, if you can't afford it, don't do that. Well, we're really struggling this month. I don't think we can tithe. Okay, Netflix and Hulu need to go. Live within your means. For years, Carrie and I have lived basically on one income for many years. We've lived on a Christian full-time Christian service budget, which is income, which is not a lot. We've been very blessed. This is not a knock on any of the churches that we've worked for or higher education. It's just Christians we're not in it for the money.
Right.
So our budget's been very tight. But Kara, we have lived now for 19 years together, and we've lived within our means. We've always had a budget. We haven't always had the nicest and the best,
Right.
but we live debt free. We don't have credit card debt that we're carrying over year to year. We've owned our vehicles. We live in a beautiful 4-year-old house that we built. Like, God has been so good to us. And for anyone who's listening and boy, you're just, the debt has just snowballed and it's just out of control. Make sure you're tithing. Make sure you live within your means. Prioritize needs over wants. Make sure that you're living a life that, hey, here's what we make and here's what we can budget. And I would say this, when it comes to like very detailed budgets, there's so much help out there nowadays. Yeah. There's apps that you can jump on, Mint and so many others that trying to think, we're with Intuit, QuickBooks. There's so many apps that literally you could pay for less than a cup of coffee, half a cup of coffee. I think $1.99, $2.99 a month, that will prioritize all that. You put in, here's how much we make, here's how much we make together, here's our bills, we need so much for groceries, so much for gas, here's our mortgage or rent, and you put it all in, and it'll tell you, it'll give you these really awesome graphs of, here's how much you have, here's how much you need to save. You know, you're in the red, like you're going to have to cut back some stuff. And so when it comes to budget, it's vitally important. Make sure you're planning for your future. Make sure you're living within your means. Make sure you're giving, helping others. And yeah, if you could just kind of follow those simple rules. I know it's a very just kind of shallow, but Care, for 19 years, it has really worked for us.
Yeah.
We have planning for retirement. We're giving. We really try to help others. We tithe. But then again, up until I know I was like, oh, wow, they just bought a new car. But how long have you been driving your car?
12 years.
12 years. You've had your van. Like, we have over 200,000 miles on our van. I just sold my vehicle, which was the 2006. So it was in August, it would have been a 20-year-old vehicle that I just drive. Like, we've lived within our means. We hang out with people who have Mercedes and very nice vehicles, but hey, it's what we can afford. We had it. They were paid off for years now. And so you just live with it and be okay with it.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add there?
I would just say, don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, the person that wrote in this question, like, great job. Like, ask for help. I know I've said it a billion times on this podcast, but like, find someone who has done this successfully and listen to what they say. Yeah. When we first started out, in marriage, your dad helped us a lot with the budget.
He did.
We also got some really good spiritual advice from, several people in our family. All of our parents are big on tithing and advised us, if you give to God, he'll give to you. And you can never outgive God. And we've lived by that principle. We really saw that played out, when we lived in West Virginia. We were having 5 children. And I mean, the times that people stepped in, not because they felt sorry for us or even knew we had a need, but we would pray and just say, Lord, we're on one income. We've got 3 or 5 kids or whatever the number was at the time. And, we really need this or we need help with that. And God would always provide, and it would be through people that had no idea. And so, ask for help, but then, more than anything, ask God for help.
Right.
And ask God, especially in this culture where it's, greed is the thing, like greed and wanting to have all of the things is in vogue right now. And so it does take a little bit of self-control and a little bit of like spiritual self-control of like, Lord, help me to be content. Help me to be satisfied, with the things that I have. And I think for me as a woman, I love to shop. I love beautiful clothes. I have 4 girls. But there have been many times, and I've been very honest about my weaknesses, and spiritually speaking, I have shared with you and like with my family. And I mean, I'm an open book. I'll share with anybody, but I just tell people that is something that I have to like think about. Like I am not going to be wasteful, and I'm going to try really hard because that's definitely a weakness of mine. I did the money when we first got married for like a year. I don't know if you remember that. I took care of the bills and stuff as far as
told me that. I do. I kind of remember that. Not really.
It was it was short lived, but
it was a good month.
I remember thinking like, okay, we were doing taxes and starting in on a move and things like that. And I remember thinking like, this isn't my strong suit, and that's okay. Yeah. It's not that it couldn't have been, or I couldn't have learned. But you are a numbers guy, and you had the help of your dad, who's very, very good with finances. And so, it was just kind of one of those things I wasn't embarrassed to say, hey, this isn't my strong suit, and that's okay. And what works for our family is to let you and your dad, at the very beginning, kind of set our budget. And then we've lived by that for a long time. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be prideful. All things come with time.
And we don't believe in a prosperity gospel where you give to God and, boy, I'm just telling you, give $10, he's going to give 100 back.
Yeah.
We don't believe in that, but we do believe that God blesses. And we have so many stories. Even as of probably 6 months ago, Carrie and I helped someone and gave them, just God prompted me. I told you, hey, I think we were without a helpless individual. We gave them probably a couple $100, I can't remember. And before I knew it, there was a check in the mail. Was it that next day?
I think it was the same night.
The same night?
It was,
it was an exchange. That's right. I gave someone not knowing, and someone gave us.
Yeah.
And it was like double.
Yeah.
It was so crazy.
Oh my word, that was crazy. We have a lot of those stories.
Oh, ton. But man, I used it that night. I brought our kids in. I was like, kids, sit down. I just want to tell you.
Yeah, that was cool.
This is what God does.
Yeah.
This is what he does. And for somebody who's sitting here saying, okay, that's great, but I'm sitting here with, $18,000 worth of credit card debt, and I've got a car that I'm way upside down in. They're just write in. We can send you some resources of some people who are experts at this, getting you out of debt within a couple years, being able to live within your means. And, we're not the Dave Ramsey's out there. We can this has worked for us. We got mentorship. We got help. They helped us. And so we've spoken to many couples. If you could start out young, great. But, if you're in your 30s and you're way upside down, there's people who can help as well. Yeah. Okay, Kara, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Second question here. How do I discipline my children? So it's kind of wide open, but there's several questions I think is coming in. So let's just talk about, maybe some young kids at this point, young children.
I can tell you what we've done up until 15 because we don't have a kid older than that. But what's worked for us is when they're small, we definitely focused on correction. It's not like punishment, like, oh, you've been, you're a bad kid. I tried never to use that language with my kids, like you're being bad, or you're a bad boy, or you're a bad girl. Like, I don't like that language. I had a mentor in my life one time, and she said, I didn't want that to become their identity. Like, you are bad. I wanted it to be, your behavior is sinful, and we need to make that right. And I liked that because it's like, and it is a small tweak, but I tried to always come from that point of view. Like, Jesus loves you, and you are fully capable of goodness and doing right. You're not choosing it right now. And of course, that's as they
really good at this too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's as they got older. When they're little, we did start out with corporal punishment. We always made sure to look up the laws in our state. I never ever wanted anyone coming into my home and seeing any signs of anything even remotely close to abuse on my children. And this does go a little against the culture of when we were kids.
Sure.
And I'm not going to go into all that because that's a lot bigger of a topic. But I think if you kind of track with me, you'll understand what I'm saying. So I didn't ever want that to even be like remotely a worry of mine.
That's good, Karen.
So I practiced, we did do some corporal punishment when the kids were very small. It was always in the form of training, and it was always for safety. Like, if they were about to touch a hot stove or, run out toward the street or something like that, and they had been told, then it was like,
they were in disobedience.
Yes, then they were going to get a couple swats.
Yeah.
Of course, when they were diapered, a little sting on the bottom was sufficient. As they got older, it grew less and less. And I always had the opinion, like, if I'm still needing to, quote unquote, wear my kid out when they're 9 years old, I never did a very good job in the beginning. I wanted to fade that out as quickly as possible because I hate it. I hate ever having to discipline my child in a physical way. But when they're small and for safety and obedience sake, it really was necessary at times. It was always like a very last resort sort of thing. And it was never, I remember actually one time we called my brother and we were like, man, this kid is just over the top. And I really thought he was going to dig in and say, man, you really need to, beat that kid or whatever. And I use that language, in a funny way, how we all used to say. But he said, I think you all need to take a break and everybody needs to rest. And we were surprised at that advice. Yeah. It was like, oh my goodness, And then there was another time when, my mom, we asked for, well, I don't think we even asked. I think she just gave her opinion. But she was like, he is running over y'all. Yeah. You have got to get a handle on him. So there were different, different times and different ways that we had to adjust, and times that we had to crack down a little bit for Tommy and the girls' own safety. Like they're running wild and no one enjoys them and they're going to get hurt. Right. And then there were times when it was like, just, you guys got to chill. Right. You can't be angry and you can't be, sinful in your response. Right. And so, I think some good things to remember that you're correcting behavior. You shouldn't come out, I'm going to beat my kids, I'm going to discipline. No, you should be correcting their behavior. And you should always remain as much as you possibly can, remain calm and do it for their good. And I've said this before on the podcast, but when we react out of embarrassment or frustration, and those feelings are going to be there, but we have to be the adult in the room. And as far as discipline goes, you have to do it quickly. The kid should know what they're being punished for or disciplined for, corrected. It shouldn't be like, oh, my parent got mad and scooped me up and is, wailing on me. I have no idea what's going on. Mm-hmm. We got the best results when we took our kids aside and said, here's what you did wrong. This was the rule. You broke the rule. And now, either you have to miss this, family activity or, whatever the case may be, or, you get a couple swats or you have to go to bed early or we take their phones or, things like that. Like right. the discipline should be quick, but they should understand what's happening. And especially when they're little, I think as much as you can, but focusing on that, like it's for their good, it's for their correction. And I just don't like the era that we grew up in where parents bragged about beating their kids. And, it's like, I just hated it. I never liked any of that, but it is necessary at times. Like there are times when you have to discipline the kids for their safety and for their betterment. But I definitely think it should be something in a physical way that fades fast. Yeah. You should get control early and then establish that relationship where they love you and they want to please you. Mm. And I know there's so many variables and so many different situations we could cover, but this is just kind of more of a blanket opinion there.
Yeah. So a couple things you said, Karen. Number one, I really believe that every situation is going to be different. Kids are different. They have different hearts. They react differently. Even different scenarios. Like you said, your mom gave an opinion and, hey, you need to step in here and be the parent. Mm-hmm. And she was right. She was 100% right. Like at the time, it's kind of weird, my mother-in-law, but man, she was right. Like we needed in that moment to get control in a very authoritative way with our son who was tiny at that time. But then with Josh, with your brother, he was exactly right in that moment.
Right.
He
He
could have
was.
given the advice like, hey, well, here's what we've been taught. You just keep going until we'll talk about this in a moment, but you break their will. But he didn't. Hey, why don't you guys walk away? I think everybody
Yeah,
needs to
take a
break.
break.
And
He
let me
could
tell
tell we were
you,
out of control.
he was exactly right in
Yeah.
that moment. Every scenario is going to be different. Why?
Mhm.
Because every kid is going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, this is a podcast where it's just opinions. And so Carrie and I are giving our opinion. There might be some people who you might fight back, and it's okay. This is just, again, our kids are not grown. We don't have grandkids. So
Right.
we're in the mix of it. But what has worked for us is you and I spoke very early. We communicated with each other. We're going through these stages with our kids. And I remember saying, you were brought up and I was brought up very similarly. It's not wrong. In fact, our parents listen to this podcast. So, I'm not by any means making it awkward for them. I'm just saying they grew up in an era that it was spare not the rod and the blueness of the wound. And, he beat a child, he shall not die or whatever. And we brought all these verses, some of them unfortunately out of context. And then we built this whole platform of, like you said, it could almost be a braggartly, like
Yeah.
just here's what we've done and here's what's worked. And maybe did. So I'm not saying by any means that we were abused or we're mad or we're upset or we're recovering. We're not at all. But we did communicate with each other. Here's some things we definitely have learned and want to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Carrie made a statement very early on in our marriage and said, Thomas, I've never liked the phrase or using a wording, I want to break their will.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought about it. I just had always heard it. You discipline this child and you have to break their will. Yeah, you tell them to pick up something, they don't pick it up. You just keep disciplining them or spanking them until you break their will. I remember when you told me that, I'm like, oh my word, like, Carrie, you are far from God because we have to, like, I don't know any other way.
Yeah.
And, but I love that we communicated early. Here's what we want to change, here's what we want to do. And the more we began to talk about it, the more we thought, we do not find this in the Word of God. And God gave every man and every child of his a will. They all have free will. And who are we to be the ones that, if we're not careful, can even do some real damage in a child that God's given them this free will? He's given them this way. This is how they communicate. This is how they are. It's not a free will to sin. It's not a free will to disobey. It's just steering a kid in the right direction and making them realize, not by making them fear the rest of their lives, any authority, but fearing what disobedience can do. And I remember the more you explain that, the more we begin to build a philosophy with our kids. We're going to put a lot of effort, and here's the word, consistency, when they're a child. Then when they get to, we've got two 10-year-olds, a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 15-year-old, and it's so much easier now because we put that consistency and time in. But it never was to this place where we are going to break who they are.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know where that really came from, and I don't want to belabor this point because it's definitely, some deeper issues there for me that I don't love to I don't really like to talk about it,
Sure,
quite honestly, but I do want to help other people, and I think it's a poor model of what Christ is in our lives. To come up with the plan of, we're going to break a child's will and we're going to just, every time they mess up, I say something, if they don't obey the first time, they're getting a beating, they're getting a spanking, they're getting punished. That's just, it's just such a horrible reflection of our Father. And when I became a parent, actually, not to keep bringing up, my brother and sister-in-law, Josh and Hope, but I guess we just really talked a lot about these things with them. But I remember my sister-in-law Hope saying that, like, that's not how God treats me. It's not every time I mess up, there's this physical pain and there's no grace, there's no mercy. I've seen people jerk a kid up by one arm and drag him out of a church service or room, and you can hear him scream all the way out, and they're spanking them, and it's a mean way to correct behavior. And I don't know why that culture flourished, but it did.
Yeah.
And I want to reflect the love of Christ to my children. Christ is merciful. He is a God of judgment.
Sure.
He is a God of justice, but his mercy and his love and his grace absolutely flow. And he calls us back and he wants us back and he gives us chance after chance after chance. And I just didn't want to raise my kids with the mentality of you don't get to make a mistake.
Yeah.
Not to mention the funny thing is so many of those adults who raise their children in such extreme disciplinarian homes, they had zero control over their tempers. I mean, you would see them beat their kids for messing up. And I'm like, who holds you accountable?
Or yell.
Yeah. Or you're screaming in the face of your child and no one's coming to beat you after that. And you have no temperance, no joy. You have no patience or grace, zero fruits of the Spirit. And yet God gives you another chance. And so while, yes, I do want our children to obey the first time. And yes, I do want them, to live right and to listen and obey. They are humans and they are every bit as much human as I am. And I make mistakes daily. And I think that culture of extremity in perfection was so damaging. I think a lot of us grew up thinking if I make a mistake, like that's it.
Yeah.
I don't get a second chance. And I mean, we were preached at that, and this is kind of going a little deeper, but somebody disobeyed God and they got in a car wreck on the way home and died. It's like
they did.
Well, like I'm sure on occasion that has happened, but you're really taking very, like a very specific.
We were scared, that's for sure.
We were terrified to drive home after, I didn't want to go home from camp. I'm like, this bus is going over because I didn't read my Bible this morning.
I didn't sing the third verse of the hymn.
Yes, like
there goes my arm.
It's true. Like it was such a
fear driven,
but it was a culture of adults holding children accountable for behaviors that they couldn't withstand.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay. And I hit about 12 years old and realized this whole thing's a setup. Like this is a mess. This is a hot mess.
But you get to ask questions.
No, God forbid you ask a question. So that's where I split ways with how we were raised. And I know it's probably sounding like I'm, tearing down my parents. I'm not. A lot of this was church culture at large. To some extent, my parents grew with us, which is what I so greatly admire about both my parents.
Yeah.
They really grew with us. I remember several conversations when I was a teenager and they understood and they heard me. And I don't think that was common in our circles, but my parents heard me. They adjusted their plan. And I've heard my parents say many times, we didn't do everything right, or I would have changed this if I could. And I think that makes up for a lot of stuff that happened that was difficult because you hear someone say, yeah, you know what? I didn't do that right. And I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge step. If you're a parent and you're saying, man, that's exactly how we raised our kids. We were out of control. We didn't have a joyful home, but yet we expected our children to be perfect. You can say you're sorry.
Yeah.
You can literally go say you're sorry right now. Make the phone call. And I think those things are very, very important to acknowledge. And even if it wasn't all wrong, it's okay to say, hey, even for stuff that I didn't know I did incorrectly, I'm sorry if it hurt you or if it wasn't, God's way, if it was extra biblical. And so, a lot of these things you learn and you grow. And I know I'll be saying those things to my kids someday. I didn't do everything right.
Right.
I did my best in the moment. I did my best with what I knew. And I know our parents honestly believed with all their heart they were doing the right thing. And they did largely do the right thing.
Right. Right.
For the most part. I do believe, kids do need parents that will step up and when it's time and when it's appropriate and when it's controlled, be the disciplinarian. But I think largely if we come at it from a position of joy, I get to be here to teach you right from wrong.
Right.
not like, oh, you stinking kids, I got to beat you into submission and break your will. If we come at it from a position of joy, like, hey, you're going to mess up. You're going to make mistakes. It's okay. I do too.
Yeah.
The difference is I'm an adult and my mistakes most likely aren't going to be running out in traffic and getting hit by a car.
Right.
We had to correct our kids tonight.
Yeah.
You can't run over there. There's cars coming around, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think to sum up, and I know this has been a little bit long and extra, but it's you do what's right before God.
Yeah.
It's not about beating anyone into submission or saying like, you know, I've got to have control of this home. Sometimes you will and sometimes you won't. And that's just how it is. I don't care how much you discipline or how much you don't. They're going to listen sometimes and sometimes they're not. Because you know why? Sometimes you don't listen to God. You're a kid too. You're God's child. And sometimes you mess up. And so I think the most joyful thing in parenting for us was coming to that point where we get to be here to teach them.
Yeah.
And it's our privilege and it's our honor. And that doesn't mean it's always easy. It doesn't mean we're going to do everything right. But for the most part, if we can guide them toward Jesus and faithfulness and righteousness, then that's all we can do.
I love that, Kara. I love how I'm just letting you talk because it's really good. I always learn from you in these areas as well. I believe what you have taught me so many times is the balance. Because of my personality, I lean one way, but there is a balance. And the balance I really feel for anyone who's raising young kids in this culture is you have to be careful because there's always two extremes.
Mm-hmm.
There's the extreme of abuse, and I would just call it that. It would be the extreme of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't like that. So we swing all the way the other way to where now we have a lot of millennial parents who are and a little bit younger than us raising kids with what many are calling soft parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And soft parenting it can be very damaging as well.
Yeah.
A kid it can just be a kid, and there's no corporal punishment, and we don't like to tell them what to do. And that's when you're letting a 4-year-old pick what gender they want to be,
Right.
or run around a grocery store kicking, screaming,
Yeah.
and we saw that parents a year ago in that airport, literally
yeah.
kicking his mom, like 6 years old, flat out, just run up kicking him.
Oh, that was awful.
Well, that's what you get when you swing the other way.
Yes.
And we don't want to correct them. We don't want to talk to them like, when I was a child, I was spanked. And so I don't want that on my kid. Well, okay, be careful because you can damage a child going the other way.
Oh, yeah.
Your kid could end up in eternity that's not heaven because you want them to make these choices in life that they're not ready to make. There has to be a balance, and the balance comes back to looking at our Savior.
Mm-hmm.
I love with our kids, there are those moments, learning moments where they have a very soft spirit and a spirit of, I'm apologetic, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Before the punishment ever happened.
Yeah.
In those moments, it's okay to forgo the punishment and be thankful that they're learning.
Mm-hmm.
Don't grow. There's a lot of me that was very sorry before was punished, but there's never mercy. There's never. You've got to give grace and mercy. That's our Savior. But there are those moments too where God has stepped in and corrected us.
Yeah.
And we know we're getting corrected because we know we did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And a kid is the same. Let them know this is why I'm stepping in. This is why you're getting corrected. I love you enough to put these standards, these boundaries in your life for you to learn so you don't make a bigger mistake down the road. So be careful to find that balance where it's not abusive. I'm going to break this kid. That's damaging. But if it goes all the way the other way into this soft parenting where I don't ever want to tell my kid what to do, and just little Johnny, he's just so cute, and I know he bit a kid, I know he hit a kid, but how do I tell him that's wrong? Okay, be the adult. You have to tell them.
Yeah.
You have to step up. You have to, once again, learn the laws of your state. Number 2, do some reading, do some research. Find parents that have just gone through it successfully.
Yes.
And that's not always grandparents. Okay. I'm being nice when I say that, but times have really changed.
Yeah.
You know, the woodshed type of mentality is not really here anymore. So you have to learn from those who are just older. Man, they've raised some good kids. They got kids in college that love the Lord, and they're getting married, and they're on fire for God. This is people I want to learn from. We ask people all the time, how did you do that? Your kids in college, and they love God, and here's how they're steering. I think it's why we were close with Josh and Hope, because they were like 2 or 3 years ahead of us.
Right.
Their kids weren't all old. They were just a couple of years ahead. So we were constantly, hey, what did this work? What do you think about this? And they had a great balance in their home.
Right.
And so find that balance to where it's not soft parenting. It doesn't work. It's unbiblical. But then the abuse is unbiblical as well. Find the balance in the middle to be the adult in the room.
That's a beautiful word. It is balance. It is balance. You have to have both.
Yep.
You have to have discipline. You have to be able to tell your child no, and they regulate. And then you have to be able to also control yourself and give grace when grace is due.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a
and
good
work
one.
with each other. We'll end with this. We can't go any further. We'll do the 2 next week.
Okay.
Is help each other. Oftentimes when I'm being too harsh on a kid, I'm going off, Carrie will give me this look. She doesn't correct me in front of the kids, but you will give me a look like, honey, chill out. I did it to you the other day.
Yeah.
And I just gave you a look like, here, like, calm down.
Yeah.
We're not going off on each other in front of.
We know
But
the vibe.
Yes. But when
like
Carrie does that, I don't get mad at Carrie. It's a check moment for me. Like, oh, good grief. Okay. So the floors, are dusty, big deal, or whatever happened the other night. And here it is just a deep breath of working together with each other, helping each other. Like, I don't think that's working. Or what do you think about this? Communicate as parents for sure. If you're divorced and it's step parents working together, the same, just communicate. It's not a competition. Well, they get to have fun at my house. And they don't, no. How are we going to raise this kid to better their life?
Yeah.
So that they can be all that they can be for the Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I think that self-regulation, teaching someone how to manage emotions, like sometimes you get mercy and that's a beautiful thing. But then sometimes you get told no. Me and my friend were in nursery this morning, and a little boy hit another kid with a little plastic like cooking pot, smacked this kid. It wasn't a big deal, but we had already told him like, no, you can't be swinging that around. You can't, he was pretending like he was going to hit, and he finally did. So my friend's like, you're going in timeout. And she's, had him sit in this chair. Man, he was just, raising a ruckus, just, I want up, just screaming and everything. And she's like, what should we do? And I laughed. I said, nothing. He sits in timeout. Like he can't hit, And so we were kind of laughing because we're like, it's been a while since we've had to, deal with like a little kid like this. But we didn't get mad. We didn't get upset. We just kind of ignored him. And he sat there for, I think we did 5 minutes. And then we let him up, and he was good as gold the rest of the time. So like sometimes it's hard. I mean, it's it's situations where, it's Sunday. I don't really want to deal with this kid. Like you could just let it go. The other kid was fine, but no, you have to be the adult in the room. And you have to teach children like that behavior is not okay. And doing that self-regulation where we're not upset. We're not mad at the kid. We're not mad at a 4-year-old. Like, oh, you little brat. No, it's like, it's a kid. They're kids. They're children. They're looking to us. We just stayed very calm. Like, no, you have to sit there. You can't hit. And, just stay patient. And that's it. So it is. Balance is the word. Balance, I think, is a beautiful thing. And again, that's exactly what we see in Christ. He is a God of justice, but he is a God of mercy. And I think when we emulate that, I don't think we're going to be too far off.
No, I love it. And I want to add one thing. This is just totally flesh. I'm just going to say it. If you have a kid that is bad and you're watching them in the nursery, at church, you're babysitting, this is just a pet peeve of mine, is when the parent walks in and the person immediately starts telling on the kid. I don't know why. That's just me. It's not in the Bible. Good grief. Give them a break. I used to hate walking in and a parent be like, well, Tommy didn't. I just walked through the door. Yeah, and it's like, your kid's not perfect and he hit and he didn't. I'm like, Okay, he's a kid. And why are you yelling at me?
Oh.
Like, chill out.
Yeah.
You need grounding. If
You
you
can tell.
babysit, it's in my skin. It's under my skin.
You
Like,
can tell you didn't grow up as a pastor's
mercy.
kid. We are used to everyone telling on us.
didn't
Oh my
that drive
gosh.
you nuts though?
I mean,
Man,
I'm
it's,
sure it did at one point. I'm
Yeah.
so used to it. I mean, that's just, yeah, adults can be mean. Adults can be just as unregulated as children.
And it's just competition. It's
yeah,
telling you
jealousy.
your kid's not perfect, and
Yeah.
I get to rub it in your face.
Yeah, I
and
would
that's very
nev-
petty.
yeah.
Like, I don't know, just you're babysitting, and they get home.
Yeah.
Hey, how are my kids? Great. Yeah, we worked maybe on a couple things, but they were awesome. I love it. Not
Yeah.
as soon as I walked through the door, little Susie did this and hit him, but I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
a-
remember that one time when we worked at West Coast and that babysitter had to call us because London had locked herself in the
Well,
bathroom?
London was a brat on that one.
Okay, that was the one time we were like,
And she recorded her.
"Yikes." Yeah, the
I
babysitter
felt
recorded
so
London. London was being so bad.
That was so
That was
embarrassing.
the only time that has ever happened.
Oh,
And we
my
were
word.
so embarrassed. I was like,
Oh, I
I am
was.
going to kill London when I get home.
There goes our podcast, right? I'm going to break her will.
I'm gonna break everything. She actually,
my
though,
word.
like the babysitter was the coolest. Who was that?
Michaela.
It was Michaela.
She was a sweetheart. Yeah.
Thank the Lord it was Michaela.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
London would have broke anybody else. Michaela
Um,
did not break a sweat over that. That
no,
was the
what is,
funniest thing.
oh my word. Oh, what's her name? She came and stayed here with us. She got
Libby?
married.
Libby Lee K?
No.
Who was it?
She came and stayed with Stephanie.
Oh,
Stephanie was an awesome babysitter. I love Stephanie.
yeah, she was
and
worse than the kids. The kids left when she was there.
If you're listening to this, Steph, we love you.
And the kids said, please come back.
Yeah. Oh, my word. Well, hey, hope this has been a help, and I hope that it makes sense as well. It's what we want to do. Keep pushing forward. Hey, raising kids is not easy.
No.
It is not for the faint of heart.
Good
It's
job.
so proud of myself. It's difficult. Stay close to God and stay close to your spouse.
Yep.
Keep your eye on the end game, and that is just raising kids to have a relationship with Jesus. Your parents, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's going to, for the moms who are listening to this and you're at your wits' end, it's going to be okay. You're
Yep.
going to make it through. We have not yet, but we're going to get there as well. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in this week.
Have a great week.